Hello and welcome to live remote imaging session. I'm Dr. Dave, and it is my pleasure to do this presentation, which will take you through an imaging session from beginning to end. And I am doing this from Las Cruces, New Mexico. That's where I live. The observatory you see on the screen is Orion's Belt Remote Observatory, which is appropriately named because that is the physical address of the observatory. Actually, a street named Orion's Belt. The facility is in Mayhill, New Mexico. It's about 2 hours from here. And we're going to conduct this session remotely. If you haven't been to my blog site yet, I encourage you to do so, where I discuss pretty much all things astronomy related, from the simple to the complex. We try to cover something for everyone, but astroimaging is certainly a passion of mine, and that's a lot of what I do. And so after 2 years of remote imaging, I felt it was a good time to kind of go through some of the things that we typically do. If you haven't been to the blog site, that's the address shown on the screen, daveandtelescope.wordpress. And then in particular, you should pay attention to the blog page entitled Going Remote, What I've Learned. That will cover some of the details of things that we're going to be doing or taking advantage of. And then the equipment you can find under My Equipment Orion's Belt. So once again, thank you for tuning in, and we'll continue with some more preliminaries in just a minute. Well, welcome back. Before we go ahead and open the observatory and prepare for an imaging session, I just wanted to point out the importance of obviously checking your local weather, and there are a lot of resources that we use for that. This is one of the main ones. It's called North Sky Camera, and I'm fortunate to have access to this. Several of the astronomers in the community have one. This is one of those where the images are downloaded and accessed here on this website, or on this web page. So you can see the sky's clear, weather looks good. We're also going to need to know what this is the clear sky clock, and you can see here that probably about 9 o'clock there's some cloud cover that's projected. So you're going to need to know about that. We also, at least I use a forecast from the National Weather Service, and typically what I'm looking for is something like this here, where it says clear with no % chance of precipitation. What I've seen is that 10% can fool you. Like up here you see it says 10% chance of showers. Well, that can happen quite rapidly, where you may not have time to respond to that. So I typically will not open if they're like you have an situation here where it's clear, and then there's at least a day or two on either side of that, particularly after that, where you will have sort of a buffer in case you have to troubleshoot a roof that doesn't close or that sort of thing. And thankfully in this area those days do happen reasonably often, where there's 0% chance of precipitation. So you have your clear sky clock, you've got your National Weather Service forecast, you got your all sky camera. Sometimes you want to check, here's a water vapor satellite. You can see we're up in here, where it looks pretty good. Jet stream map, we're out of that, at least for tonight. So all these things can be helpful, and that kind of gives you your overview for the kind of local and regional forecast. And so we're good on that. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to actually go up to the observatory and check in there and start getting things ready. I use TeamViewer to remote in. It's worked really well for me. It's free. All the updates are free, and when there have been any issues, it typically is internet related. It's not really anything with the application itself. You can configure this once you set up an account, email and password. You don't have to, obviously when you first install the software on your remote computers, and then you test it out, it's going to say, what's the password of the remote computer, and then it keeps changing that, and that's going to be ridiculous. It's never going to work if you're 1,000 miles away. But you can configure it to bypass that, so you don't have to enter passwords when you log in, and so that makes it very easy. I have two observatory computers. One operates the 16-inch on Pier 1, and Observatory 2 is for the Pier 2 computer. We're not going to be using the telescope there, but there is software that we're going to need actually to open the roof, so we're going to utilize that. But let's go to Observatory 1. Wait, we're already on there, so let me here we go. So this is the desktop of Observatory 1, and you can see I have opened the screen showing the weather data from the Boltwood cloud monitor, which is a cloud sensor that's mounted right at the observatory itself. It's on a tower that's kind of bolted to the east wall there, and that tells us what's happening right there. So we can kind of combine that information with the sort of generalized local weather forecast that we already know about. And what we really want to know here is, of course, we know it's clear. That's, obvious. At least for now, we're good on that. Your wind speed is going to be important because of the roll-off. And a larger aperture scope, the tolerances are not going to be that great if the wind starts to creep up above, say, 10, 11 miles an hour. It's already up to 13, so going to need to wait until that kind of diminishes, and then it'll fluctuate during the night, and you might have to just have to ride that out at times. Usually we know about the wind forecast as well. I didn't mention that earlier, but if it's expected to be particularly gusty, we might defer opening, but I usually rely on this measurement here right at the observatory, because it can be quite a bit different than the general wind forecast. It's a very localized phenomenon. Two other things we pay attention to. One is this humidity, which right now is at 31%. It's fine, obviously. I'm not going to complain about that, but you do notice here's a dew point of 44. I think it's the temperature in the high 70s. The temperature really drops significantly here in the mountains, and this can fool you. I've gotten burned a couple of times, so you do need to be careful. Not likely that you're going to run into problems starting at 31%, but you know, you can see that humidity increase pretty rapidly with the temperature dropping. So we've got our wind measurement now, dew point. You know, I don't think it's going to get that cold tonight. I think I think 50s is about what it looks like. So we're probably going to be okay there. You can configure these cloud monitors to do whatever you want in terms of automation. You can, and I've tested this. You can have your executive program, whether it's autopilot or whatever, you can have it link to this and respond to any of these things. If it gets cloudy, it can shut down. If the humidity goes above a certain amount, it can shut down. You know, I tend to be a little leery about having these automated emergency shutdowns because so many things have to be in perfect order. The telescope has to be parked, etc. So I don't usually worry about that, and I haven't really integrated this with any of the control programs. The one thing I do is, you see down here, you have these alert types. This is an alarm, sound alarm, and you can, if you increase your volume, this is actually pretty loud. And so I have this here for cloudy or very windy, and of course right now it's okay. But let's see if we put it for clear, you'll see what kind of sound you get here. Let's do that. So that you know, that's pretty loud. I mean, I can hear that at night, and if that happens, I can get up and check it out. You know, like I was saying before, I don't typically image. If there's even a 5% chance of rain, I'm not going to do it. So I don't usually, and I haven't run into any problems for quite some time. And it's obviously a very conservative way of going about this, but that's kind of what I'm comfortable with. So we have the immediate weather at the observatory. We know about that. Observatory 2, or I'm sorry, Pier 2. This is the desktop or laptop for Pier 2, and we're going to make use of the roof control on that in just a minute, and we will get started shortly.